I have changed. I absolutely have changed.
Oh boy. Everything in this video is strictly my opinion. It is not meant to be a tool for diagnosis, but a means of healing a fractured community of creators and viewers who feel completely betrayed right now and need answers. I didn't want to make this video or the next video on this topic that will be following this one whenever I feel like making that one. But since I know the answer to some of these burning questions, or at least I think I do, I figure I'll just take one for the team and make the videos. I mean, why not? Who cares? Because whereas for most people this has been a surprise and, others were hesitant to believe such a seemingly crazy story, I caught on to Shannon kinda early and I've been expecting this for a while. Not this exactly, but something like this. So while it was truly overwhelming, I've had years to process her being a bad person, whereas for everyone else it's a fresh wound. And besides, since she's hurt so many people, myself included, I don't feel like I can hold this in any longer without exploding. I don't feel like I can really go forward with my YouTube channel without addressing this. So here I am. Sometimes things that we have to do aren't easy, but we have to do them. So that's why I'm here. Oh, and also please don't harass anyone mentioned in this video, not even Shannon or her former friends. Definitely not her former friends. It may feel good for a fleeting time, but the world has enough hate in it. I don't want to add to that. So, to recap, this is not a diagnosis. This is strictly my opinion. Please don't harass people. If you can't roll with that, please don't watch this video. Thank you. Sorry, I'm getting over a cold. Anyway, part 0. Who are you, you sub 100k loser? How are you relevant? And why are you making this video? Hello, ancient astronaut theorists. I am Sad Crow Man, they/he. I took an unannounced 3-month break from YouTube recently. I moved to the Denver metro area, and I left all my fucksissy levels, so believe me when I say I am dropping some bombs today, because my PTSD was too bad for me to comment on things like this, because the anxiety would cripple my voice, But I have good news. Now my PTSD is even worse, and I'm dissociating through this whole experience, so I can say whatever I want, and it won't affect me emotionally. Okay, time for the video to get sad now. So Creepshow Art, aka Bad Vibes Only, Smoking Kills, but so have I, Shannon. Stalked Emily for years, and would have channeled her jealousy into ruining her whole life given the chance. She would have taken everything from her. And as anyone who is familiar with her channel knows, she posted a video twisting the story around, claimed that she was the one who was stalked, and then changed some key details, such as presenting Emily's sexual assault as a romantic rendezvous.
And I would talk back and forth online, and she would tell me stories of her life and how fucking dope it was. She'd talk about how this one guy wanted to see her so badly, he climbed up her house to her window on the 2nd floor, brought her chocolates, and they stayed up all night watching scary movies together. Or about how this other guy was so into her that when she was grounded and couldn't talk to him because her parents had taken her phone away, he bought
Gross. She also obsessively directed hate toward Holly Brown, which, spoiler alert, that's how she and I started feuding, more on that later. She fabricated evidence and schemed to cancel Hopeless Peaches. She said horrible things about her friends behind their backs, all the while love-bombing them excessively to their faces and online publicly. And she started shit between other YouTubers behind the scenes. Her whole persona was founded on virtue signaling, while behind the scenes she was using transphobic slurs, using autistic as an insult, and then wants to act like she's a big fan and supporter of my channel, me being transgender and autistic both, and that's not even scratching the surface of all the stuff she's done. So when all this information came out, I was shocked that there were people who didn't believe us. For those of you who are watching this, okay, but I still don't know who the fuck you are and how you know Creepshow Art. Well, you may have heard her love bombing me every couple months or so online.
I feel that everything I could say and would want to say about that has already been said by the amazingly talented and crazy fantastic YouTuber Piper Sweeney. In Piper's video about the accusations, they pretty much sum up what happened between the two, the flaws in the accusations, the parts that don't make sense, and why most of what was said against Melanie doesn't hold water if you think about it for more than 2 seconds. To go watch Piper's videos on this subject. Piper is an amazing YouTuber. They work outstandingly hard on what they make, and the amount of time they have dedicated to making this series on Melanie Martinez is commendable. Piper is one of the best creators on this site, so please, please, please go check them out and subscribe. With that all out, if you guys want to learn more about Melanie Martinez or the slanderous accusations that were thrown at them and why I find them to not hold very much weight, again, Piper Sweeney's videos will be linked in the description. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a genuinely good day. Shout out to my patrons, and I will see all of you guys in my next video. Later. Am I stepping on Piper Sweeney's pigeon toes a little bit by making a video that is vaguely Melanie Martinez related? Yes, I am. But will I buy them a soda pop to make up for it because this whole thing is a bit too bonkers for me not to talk about? Yes, I will. I didn't expect Piper Sweeney's book about their art to be an outlier in the art world because that shit actually came the fuck out. But I was wrong. Also by Piper Sweeney's book. So I decided what I was going to do.
Okay, usually we just ignored each other, which is what two people who hate each other usually do. But I think she had some kind of internal timer that would go off in her head every couple months or so, like, ding! Hey Shannon, it's your brain. Oh, did I remember to pacify that mentally disturbed fake boy I pissed off 4 years ago so I don't end up getting cancelled by some sick furry in a pigeon mask? Because that would be a lame way to go, my dude. I think I nailed it. This video is sponsored by someone who is actually a longtime supporter of my channel, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community where you can both teach and learn creative skills and interact with other students doing the same. There are classes ranging from the visual arts to productivity, music production, creative writing, entrepreneurship, just about anything you could dream of. Skillshare is where I learned how to paint digitally long before they approached me for a sponsorship. Their website is curated specially for learning with no ads to distract you, and with new transcript feature that helps neurodivergent and those with hearing impairments focus on the lesson. Plus, with most classes being no more than an hour long, you can learn at your own pace and from the comfort of your own home, meaning just about anyone can fit learning with Skillshare into their busy routine. And did I mention that Skillshare has Jonathan Van Ness from Queer Eye? JVN teaches a class called The Ultimate Self-Care Playbook, where he teaches you how to make a planner, not for your job, not for what everyone else wants out of you, but for you. So that way you can make sure to prioritize your self-care just as much as you prioritize other people and their constant demands. You know, capitalism and all. JVN's class thoroughly covers the importance of prioritizing your time in a fun and engaging way, and I highly recommend it. And I'm excited to share that the first 1,000 people to click the link in my description will be awarded a 1-month free trial of Skillshare Premium so that you can explore your creativity, learn a new passion, or perfect an existing one. And don't forget to follow me on there under the name Piper Sweeney because I plan on posting new classes as soon as I get my life together. If I get my life together. But even if I don't, there are always plenty of teachers on there uploading new premium classes, so if you're interested, please click the link and get started with your lifelong learning journey. Thank you, and now let's talk about things that I don't like as much. My channel used to be called Piper Sweeney, but I changed it for gender dysphoria reasons. I no longer have a name, you can now just call me whatever you want, except Piper Sweeney. My subscribers call me everything from Daddy Crow to Redacted. A lot of them calling me daddy. I think it's funny when my subscribers call me daddy, even though I know deep down that the thing that makes me a daddy is that I engage in intermittent periods of unsolicited fathering, admit I'm an inconsistent presence in their lives, but swear I'm different now and I'll change and I'll do better. And then I leave to pick up some milk at the gas station, go missing, and then stumble onto the front porch 3 months later, drunk and with issues that I won't talk about. So, like, which came first? My subscribers' daddy issues or them subscribing to my channel? I jest, of course. I have a really great supportive audience, and it's the only thing that keeps me coming back to YouTube time and again, even after the latest drama makes me want to quit forever and go live off the grid. So before I really dive into this, I want to thank my audience for sticking with me all this time. Even when stuff like this happens, and it just seems like I'm never going to come back again. Not everyone is lucky enough to have an audience like mine, you know? And from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Thank you for sticking with me. But yeah, despite the fact that Shannon served me constant shoutouts for like 3 years, I think, you probably haven't actually heard of me in a way that stuck in your memory, which I think speaks to how ingenuine her shoutouts are. I've never even seen her link to any of the people she was supposedly trying to promote, and if there's no link out, it's pretty safe to assume she was doing it as a part of her love bombing rituals. Out of all the people involved in this, I have one of the smallest followings, and that's one of the reasons why it was harder for me to come out about this stuff, but why am I so small yet still somehow involved in this when I'm so irrelevant? Well, it's because I established myself as a threat to Creepshow Art early on when we were both small tubers, more on that in the second video, which will be more personal. But my channel never grew along with hers or even broke 100k because I never really settled on a niche. Whereas most successful YouTubers have a common theme tying their videos together, the only thing I'm consistent about is doing whatever the fuck I want. My channel is just the toilet where I dump all of my creative impulses. So the result is I'm authentic, but not actually marketable. The sort of content I usually make, and bear with me because I promise this is relevant to my beef with Creepshow. I usually draw musicians I like or my original characters, and for the commentary, sometimes I analyze media and celebrity culture. Sometimes I'll do deep dives on serious issues if my stamina allows it, and other times I'll do completely out of left field shit like cat videos, Animal Crossing. Fuck, I've even made Melanie Martinez YouTube poop. I definitely want to make more spiritual content in the future, like tarot readings and stuff. But for the most part, I've been known as the Melanie Martinez guy. I make other videos, but my Melanie Martinez ones are the only ones that ever get picked up by the algorithm because of how it works. Considering the content I make, you may be shocked to hear that our channels, Creepshow Art and Piper Sweeney, used to be compared to each other more or less constantly, at least in our comment sections. And also, once in a LOL Cal thread I found where they said she sucked, but I'm great, but whatever. Some people even thought we were the same person, and she would joke with me in the comments that we had similar lives and we had similar wives, but we were different nonetheless. Or whatever, you get it. And our mutual audience would eat that shit the fuck up. Back in the day, Shannon and I were both involved in a genre of videos where we did story times and commentary while drawing in the background, and back then it wasn't that common a thing. The trend of drawing in videos but not talking about the art itself, I'm pretty sure Holly Brown started that trend around 2016-17 with her old channel. And then I think Emily was one of the front runners, at least in the storytime art genre, where you share your personal stories with your personal art in the background for that truly intimate experience. I jumped on the bandwagon early on, not knowing how popular the format would end up getting because it was the only kind of videos I could make with the limited equipment I had, and because I had more confidence in my art than in my face. Even though my early digital art looked like this. Ew. I was so much better at traditional, but I didn't have a camera, so that's what we had. Anyway, Creepshow Art also made these sorts of videos because Emily did it, and she was obsessed with Emily. But other than us both being art YouTubers, I don't think we had anything in common at all, period, and that's part of why I struggled to interact with her. Truthfully, I don't know why people thought Shannon and I had such a similar personality. Maybe back then I dramatized my personality a little bit more than I do now because charisma is something I had to learn as an autistic person. And to a lot of people, I probably came off as similarly grating, loud, annoying, especially since I can be extremely mean sometimes without even trying. Like, I think I'm being honest, but to others it just comes off as being mean. As a matter of fact, I'm probably coming off as mean right now, and all I have to say is, good. Or maybe it was the self-deprecating humor that Shannon and I both use. I don't know. Oh, and then there's the fact that Creepshow Art and I both wore masks. Haha, but tisk. I'm not unconvinced that Shannon's whole public persona is just like a Frankentuber made up of every personality on this site that she thinks is a threat to her or better than her or whatever. Of course, as time passed, though, those comparisons died down as the pool of people making these sorts of videos grew, and I kind of fell off in relevance, and I all but stopped making storytime videos, and she also shifted away from storytime videos and started making my least favorite type of video, drama videos. I eventually also slowed down on making videos on topics that overlapped with drama channels, even if they were topics I were interested in, like Johnny Depp and What's Her Name. For reasons unrelated to Creepshow, I only make videos on these topics now if I feel like I have something important to add, because otherwise I feel like I'm just profiting off of someone else's misery for cheap views. And that's a good business model, but it doesn't feel good on my soul, you know what I mean? Anyway, after we both changed our content styles and no longer made similar videos, her audience grew far beyond the small audience we had in common, and our audiences had less significant overlap. Until she started making Melanie Martinez videos like I did, did and used each one she made as an excuse to shout me out, but I'm getting ahead of myself. That's more of a second video topic. I've explained enough for now, so let's discuss what's going on before I make this too much about me, when really this is about Emily and to a lesser extent the art community as a whole, and of course to all the other people she's hurt, and you know what I mean. As I was saying, I'm not surprised that Shannon has engaged in prolific antisocial crimes against the community and her husband's survivor. I'm surprised that people don't believe us. Like, I understand being cautious for legal reasons, especially as a YouTuber. You know, YouTubers have been sued for slander, but outright casting doubt on Emily and her story, I don't get it. Yes, I know a lot of subscribers across the board have lost faith in YouTubers in general, especially when the topic is other YouTubers because of rampant disinformation campaigns. But Creepshow Art is behind a lot of those disinformation campaigns, so it took me a while to figure out why so many people were still willing to trust her, especially over Emily, when if you watch any of her storytime videos, they're all very tall tales that are hard to believe. I just don't get it. Like, I understand her former friends, Shannon's former friends, excuse me, not immediately trusting a stranger's word over their friend's word, especially since she invested so much effort into love bombing said friends. And most of them, having gotten a taste of who she was behind the mask, have come around after she cut them off like a slice of cheese. Surely they would want answers, right? But for our followers, it just did seem kind of odd to me. I thought, isn't it obvious to people that Shannon has sociopathic tendencies? And then once all this came out and some dust settled, I realized, no, it isn't obvious. To most YouTube viewers, this is shocking, frustrating, and maybe even confusing in some parts. And I figure my audience must be just as overwhelmed as I am. My break from YouTube, which was like 3 months long, it was maybe 10% because of my current situation, because where there's a will, there's a way, and it was 90% because I felt so overwhelmed by this Creepshow Art shit, even with all my intellectualization of her actions. And I only know the stuff I know. I only have these tools to intellectualize this situation because I studied psychology both in college and out, and I have a special interest in cluster B personality disorders, which I think we all know how when an autistic kid has a special interest, they're not exactly a doctor. It doesn't make me a doctor, no. But yeah, I have a buttload of information that I thought would be completely useless to me. I never thought this special interest would be useful to me outside of writing fiction, and I started learning this information primarily so I could write more realistic villains. And that's not even what I ended up using this information for. Here we are, in the real world, talking about something that you would expect from a bad late 90s thriller novel baking off old people's fears of the internet. Sorry for derailing. The point is, because of said special interest, I'm accustomed to these patterns now, so I'm going to set aside my distaste for rocking the boat with risky opinions that I know a lot of people aren't going to like, so I can help others who need it really badly fill in those blanks. Like, if this video comforts even one person, I think it was worth it. Emily is an upstanding member of this community. She has created a positive environment with her videos, and we are extremely lucky to have someone like her in the art community. She has poise, and she cares about this community as much as I do, probably more. And when I frantically emailed her asking if she was okay, if she was safe, and it had all the grace of a PTSD survivor, the one I've been pretending I'm not and everything's okay. Oh god, that was a mess of an email I sent. But still, like, she took the time out of her busy schedule to reassure me that she was okay. And how do I know she was busy? Because she's a working mom. She doesn't have time to make this shit up. And when I shared my personal issues with Creepshow with her, she responded with love and empathy. Not with like a territorial reminder that she had it so much worse or that she's lost so much more. She's a genuine person, and I'm telling you right now, her motive is not clout chasing. A clout chaser would have tried to one-up me, not empathize with me, and that's what she's given to this whole community after we've all been scarred by the same creator, love and empathy. And she's even empathized with Shannon herself, and that's something that takes a lot of emotional intelligence and care. Like it or not, she's telling the truth, and I back her 1,000%. Holly Brown responded to me with similar compassion, and while I didn't personally reach out to Peaches, I believe her too. And I did see Thuman's video suspecting Shannon was using her for clout to make herself look woke. And I second that, as I've had the same suspicion all year. And honestly, I could keep going, but something could be said for half the art community at this point. And I believe everyone, not just because I'm good at seeing through people, but because I've had my own experience with Shannon. And I fully stand by all the survivors of Shannon, no matter how small the transgression. She's hurt many people, both in big ways and in small ways, and this is not about revenge. This is not about clout. This is about retribution, and that's why, even though I hate talking shit on other YouTubers, I'm finally doing it. I'm going to talk in length about what might be going on in Creepshow Art's head, my personal interactions with her, literally anything that might help anyone in any way, whether it's to understand, to move on, or just to help people vent all these emotions vicariously through me, because since I never really liked the bitch, and I'm out of shits to give, I'm going to hold back less than most people will. Also, Shannon can't really sue me for anything because I don't have anything to be sued for. I'm broke as fuck. So let's go. Part 1. Feeling our feelings. First, before we get into this, I would like to apologize both to my audience and to my fellow YouTubers. I'm sorry I played frenemies with Shannon instead of warning people. I'm so sorry that I kept what I know hidden for so long. It was everyone's right to know this stuff, but I planned on taking these secrets and observations to my grave. Not because I thought it was the right thing to do, or even the mature thing to do, but because I was a bitter, passive-aggressive coward, especially back in, 2017 when all this started. I can't promise I'm not the same sad crow man I was back then, because I slip up every day. But I'm also growing spiritually every day, and I'm ready to do my part now and take responsibility. And for good measure, I'm sorry it took me so long to make this video. I wanted to do this months ago. I even had this scripted months ago, but I wasn't really in the headspace to record it until now. It took me a long time to be able to articulate my thoughts without emoting. People think I'm a calm, collected individual because I take an intellectual approach to things, and this simply is not true. I once started crying because I loved Lady Gaga so much, I didn't know how to express it. I have a lot of feelings. I just wait until I'm relatively calm before I record videos, and by the time I'm ready to talk about it, I've lost my reverence for emotional sensitivity. Intellectualization is how I calm myself down, so even though this wasn't shocking to me particularly, maybe some of the details were, but, it was still very upsetting across the board. I had several panic attacks because of how much of this I felt it was just it was my fault, because I wanted so badly to warn people, because I suspected her from the beginning of doing something, but I kept my mouth shut for all these years. I studied psychology in college, and I had a special interest in psychopaths. I was raised in an abusive household. I ended up in an abusive relationship in my early 20s where I was sexually assaulted more than once. I know toxic behavior when I see it, but yet I kept my mouth shut. And no matter how many people tell me it wasn't my fault, I may always feel like it was my fault. And for my piece in this, I am sorry. Um, I saw these toxic patterns playing out in her friendships publicly, but I kept my mouth shut because I assumed no one would believe me and just assume I was another clout chaser trying to take down a bigger YouTuber. Not only was Shannon charismatic, but at the time I was so plagued by self-doubt that I didn't even believe myself, even when it was clear as day to me what was going on. I must be crazy to think that this woman was a manipulative, toxic drama addict who lived to profit off slander. Or at least that's what I kept telling myself, because I knew my take was unpopular at the time, and I wanted it to be untrue. And for whoever in this audience feels the same way, like there was always something about Creepshow Art that was off, but you felt like no one would listen, I feel you. And it's okay to feel relieved that others are finally on the same page as you, because it's human nature to want to feel seen and understood. I promise no matter how this video comes off, my intent is to help people come to terms with the way Shannon really is by painting out her pervasive patterns of toxic, shady, and antisocial behaviors. Going forward, please remember sociopath is not a medical term, and although the word is used to describe people who engage in antisocial behavior like Shannon, it's not the same as ASPD, which is a treatable personality disorder. ASPD standing for antisocial personality disorder, of course. And this video is not a diagnosis, and I beg you don't treat it as such. I don't want any information in this video to be misconstrued or misused to stigmatize ASPD, which I know everyone thinks it's untreatable, but it really is a treatable illness, as we're finding out in recent years. And to beat this disclaimer black and blue, when I say words like antisocial and sociopath, I'm describing toxic patterns of criminal and or manipulative behaviors, not the personality disorder that features those behaviors. And by the way, anyone coming at me defending Shannon can kindly unsubscribe, because stalking, slander, manipulation, lying, revenge porns, all the other ways that Shannon targeted people are all blatantly antisocial behaviors, no matter what may or may not be rattling around in her thick skull, and I refuse to make excuses for her that would dampen the impact she's had on others, period. And if that makes me an asshole, then so be it. Thank you. That said, let's take some pause to repair some of the hurt in this community. At the risk of sounding like I've been possessed by a therapist, if at any point this video becomes too stressful, please take a break. I'll try to crack some jokes to keep things from getting too dark, because we all know humor is my personal coping strategy, but if you must, get your feelings out there somehow, get them out there in a constructive way that your therapist would approve of. I personally chose to vent by writing a song about Shannon that I sing whenever I get too stressed out. It's no masterpiece, just a petty diss track that resolved many of my Creepshow-induced panic attacks that I've had over the past couple of months. And all I'll say about it is that everyone I performed it for has laughed along, and that I'm afraid to post it because it might get me in trouble. But never underestimate the power of crying through your art. You could do the same thing, or something more touchy-feely, or you could just paint, journal your thoughts, feelings, use poetry, anything that helps you personally. There are no rules here, just as long as it makes you feel better and you're not hurting yourself or anyone else. You don't have to share it with others either, it's just your personal outlet for expression. And it doesn't even have to be good, but yeah, if you've been at all affected, even if you were just a viewer of Creepshow Art, you probably need to talk to someone about it at least. Even if you're just a viewer, this is a lot for anyone to handle on their own. If you're a former fan of Creepshow Art, talking with other former fans will help out a lot when it comes to processing this and moving on. I know a lot of you probably feel shocked and betrayed right now, and parasocial relationships such as the YouTuber subscriber dynamic can feel very real and personal to you. And it can impact your life like you've lost a friend, especially if you're using it in place of a support system, and I'm sure it hurts a lot to hear the truth. You could probably find equally affected people to discuss it with online on Discord, Reddit, or a similar social networking site. So please don't feel like you have to deal with this alone, because it's not a big enough deal that didn't have a big enough impact on your life. A lot of people have been subscribed to her for multiple years, and I guarantee it's had an impact. That this whole thing has had an impact on her subscribers, because how could it not? It's a hard pill to swallow, and I understand why some people are hesitant to divorce her channel and deplatform her, as several large YouTubers have mishandled serious allegations in the past, and I know how it feels like your favorite YouTubers are your friends, and sometimes you want to side with them or hope that there's some kind of misunderstanding. But I'm sorry to say that there is no misunderstanding here. Shannon stalked Emily for years and used this Amy character as a scapegoat. I'm sorry. It must be really stressful to find out that a charismatic personality you once enjoyed was actually just superficial charm, that the channel you enjoyed was ultimately used as a tool to flip the script on an abuse survivor. And that must make you feel differently about memories that once made you feel happy. On the flip side, for fans of the YouTubers who are coming out against Shannon, this is stressful in a different way. Because when YouTubers get stressed, sometimes that stress gets passed down to the core audience. We don't do it on purpose, it's just that sometimes it's hard to pretend like everything's okay when it isn't. You worry about them. Are they going to be okay? And believe me, I get the roller coaster of emotion you guys are enduring. And I'm sorry you're going through what you are right now, and I promise everything will be okay. Also, if you're a fellow YouTuber feeling guilty right now for playing nice with Shannon, please don't. I know it's easier said than done. I feel guilty myself, even though for years I've suspected she secretly hates me, and I mean, we've seen the way she talks about trans people and autistic people, so what are the odds she doesn't hate me? And I tried my best, to keep her at arm's length without tipping her off that I knew she had ulterior motives for talking to me, and deep down I wanted her to be a good person. I wanted to be wrong about what my intuition was telling me. I wanted to believe that even if I was right, that she could change. Well, I guess she could change, but probably not anytime soon. But, that's just exactly what she wanted us to think. She gives her fellow creators so many insincere, sycophantic shoutouts. You feel guilty enough just having a negative opinion on her. You wouldn't dream of actually coming after her after she sat there spending 10 minutes singing the highest praises of you. How would that look to people? How would you even begin to explain how she made you feel to your audience? You didn't even know what you were feeling yourself, let let alone how to articulate that feeling to others. And alas, that's how she's gotten away with it for so long. People ask that a lot. How did it take so long for Creepshow Art to be cancelled? She did so much to so many people. Well, it's because she's weaved a very intricate web of lies and armored herself by sucking up to any YouTuber who might otherwise be a problem for her one day. For years, even politely holding Shannon accountable felt like a death sentence. Her facade is only just now falling apart because so many people who were once afraid to speak out against her are now coming out. Because let's just be honest, Creepshow Art has a prolific issue with virtue signaling on her platform. And the LOL cow expose and her treatment of Emily proves that she doesn't actually care about any of these issues. I didn't even realize how much Shannon had manipulated me personally until other people started coming out like this. I chalked it all up to a bad vibe and wondered if even that bad vibe was just me seeing an abuser because I myself had been abused. Transference, in other words. But no, I was right all along, and I should have trusted my instincts. All these creators who Shannon acted like they were her best friends were just as out of touch with who she really was as I was. I hardly talked to her at all, but she kept shouting me out like she knew me, and it creeps me out even more in retrospect, because, again, we barely talked. I wonder now about all the times people have tried to hack me, like somebody tried to hack my Instagram and YouTube both, and I had no cares about it at all. And I just joked that I hoped my hacker wasn't pursuing a degree in counterterrorism because it was pathetic. Actually, that's not even much of a joke, that's just the truth. Um, I've also been harassed and forced to expose my face online, and let's just say my new suspect has given me at least 5 shoutouts that I have a record of, none of which sounded sincere to my audience, who was in the comments correcting her on my name. I'm sorry, but when someone gets your name wrong in a shoutout, did they ever even know you, let alone like you? She was not lying when she said she was dumb, but I digress. I'm talking about how she's two-faced, basically, is what I'm saying. You know, she's one way to your face, another behind your back. Like what Ready to Glare said the other month or so ago about the roses. Wow, it really has taken me a long time to voice this video. The script said the other day. Anyway, how could someone say such horrible things about her on LOL Cow, and then send her roses? I mean, in flower language, roses mean love, right? That's just grade A gaslighting to me. I'm surprised I could make it through that video without emoting. I must have cried at least 8 times over this situation in general. More over stress and anxiety than anything else, but occasionally just because of how much hurt this has caused people. And I hate it when I'm right. I saw the way she talked to Ready to Glare over Twitter, and I was seeing patterns of manipulative behavior, love bombing to be specific. But I ignored them because honestly, what could I have done about it? Why would Ready to Glare believe some random small tuber over her friend that she's being love bombed? Why would anyone trust a hermit like me on other people's social cues? So I've stayed quiet for years, analyzing, processing, walking on eggshells with this bitch. So yes, I believe Ready to Glare too. And please don't come after Shannon's former friends. Like, I know I've said this already, but I know you probably feel hurt, but they feel hurt too. I'm not saying you have to trust them because, I don't trust everyone across the platform either, but, they're survivors of manipulation and they don't deserve hate by association with Shannon. If you have a personal beef with one of them for something, or there's something about them that you don't like, that's fine, but whatever your reasons are, there's no reason to harass them, alright? There's just no excuse for it, so please put a damper on that. Please stop sending people messages, oh, why haven't you responded to the Creepshow Art drama yet? Because, this is a really intimate, hurtful thing that's happened, and a lot of people just can't do it, alright? And think about how quickly Shannon's turned on people in the past. Like Hopeless Peaches, for example. That's the sort of thing everyone was afraid of. So please be kind and imagine if you were in their shoes, how hard this is. I wouldn't be surprised if it takes those closest to her years to mentally work through all she's put them through. And you know what? They've come out against Shannon, a lot of them have, and I truly think that Shannon's former friends are doing the best they can. Just give them the benefit of a doubt, please. I admit I initially started avoiding their channels when they started associating with Shannon because I didn't trust Shannon, but I think they've made their stances on this extremely clear, and I commend them for speaking out on her. The closer you are with someone, the braver you have to be to stand up to them. And for Shannon's former friends to stand up for Emily, that just shows me how much stronger this community is without Shannon and her web of control and deceit and love bombing. If there's anything that simply can't be denied due to the overwhelming evidence, it's that she's responsible for just as much drama behind the scenes as she is publicly on her channel. This is kind of embarrassing to admit, but part of the reason I started making art videos is because I was lonely and I wanted to make friends with other artists. Because YouTube's art community was like my safe space. Watching art videos was my escape from my traumatic life. And, I was once on the other side of this parasocial relationship dynamic, and I thought it would be fun to chat with some like minded people, the art YouTubers I liked and stuff. This was like way back in, I think it was 2016. And I've wanted to befriend others in the art community for years. I've taken a few baby steps, but ultimately chickened out. And I'd be lying if I pretended it was just because of Shannon. I'm literally autistic after all. It can be daunting to reach out to a YouTuber you respect. But my anxiety is mostly because, well, for one, I was afraid the others would treat me like her, and because of the drama climate that Creepshow created, and because you never know if other YouTubers have seen your videos and what they think about you, or what they say about you in private. So when I became a YouTuber myself, I actually was more afraid to approach other YouTubers, not less afraid to reach out to people, like anywhere on the internet, because, oh crap, what if they know me and they hate me? You know what I mean? In theory, though, we should all be getting along well because we have so many common interests, common goals, and common experiences. And the recipe for friendship seems so perfect on the outside. I thought it would be so perfect to be an art YouTuber and have tons of art YouTuber friends. But then on the inside, turns out there's fighting, chaos, backstabbing, cancellation campaigns, threats, receipt hoarding, and stalking. You may think it's human nature, but it's not. It's Shannon's nature. Shannon is the root of why we can't get along, and it's so obvious to me. This should make it clear how much damage she's done to community relations through her manipulation. Can you imagine how many people would have otherwise gotten along with each other and maybe even collaborated with each other if not for Shannon's deceit? If not for the precedent she set forward with her YouTube channel and the climate she created? The standards she set for video success and for research or lack thereof. Can you imagine how happy this community would be compared to the outside world where people are resorting to rioting for basic human rights and living in fear of a deadly virus? And through all these external stressors, she couldn't even be good to her friends? Look, she can't even be half decent. From what I can see, Shannon's friends were like puppets to her. Or tools, perhaps. Maybe both. She probably favored them to some extent. I doubt her every impulse was completely fake. Yes, a sociopath can be genuinely interested in a person, but it's not necessarily in a healthy way. It can often be obsessive and toxic. I don't know if that's a comfort or if that will just make it sting more, but she probably did love her friends in a twisted, toxic way. However, anyone who goes so far to manipulate their friends like this, anyone who could say such horrible, atrocious things about them behind their backs. And again, with what's going on in the world right now, nobody needs this shit. I'm sorry, but somebody like that doesn't deserve to have friends. The only person Shannon loves is herself. The LOL cow expose is more than enough for me. I don't need any other proof. There's no room to doubt that she's toxic. There's no reason you should look down on her former friends for cutting her out. They did what they had to do. And if this is how she treats her friends, imagine how she treats someone she doesn't like. Someone she's targeting. The survivor and ex-girlfriend, aka Emily, who Shannon is probably constantly compared to by Anthony, whatever his name is. I forgot. Well, even with a small fish totally unrelated to the situation like me, I can only imagine the shit she said about me behind my back. And just an FYI, if anyone knows, please don't tell me. I'd rather not know. And in my next video, you'll see the entire history of our private conversations, so you'll know anything she said about me isn't true anyway, because where is she pulling it from? We really did not talk much, but what we did say was pretty interesting, but we'll get into this later. Oh, I did check those LOL cow posts for references to me, by the way. She didn't post anything about me using that particular account, though stray messages like these sound very Shannon-esque and give me the impression she has more accounts, so I don't know. I don't feel like digging through all this, but I couldn't find anything. Anyway, we've seen what Creepshow Art has put Emily through, and Emily has been an upstanding member of this community for years, and I can't bring myself to doubt her for even a second. Emily would not make this shit up, and yeah, it kind of hurts my feelings that more people don't believe us, I admit. I understand why people are so skeptical, I really do, but I can't help how I feel. So many of us have come out against Shannon, all with similar stories of manipulation, and still people doubt us. Why? Because we don't have enough proof? She deleted half her channel and all of her social media, and she did not do that for no reason. Innocent people don't run, they don't delete and hide shit, and honestly, there's plenty of proof to show that she's at least a prolific manipulator. No normal person does the stuff she does. How many more people have to come forward about Shannon before people will believe us? I'd much rather walk away from all this. I don't want to be sitting here making this video. I have more important things going on in my life, but I keep coming back to this. And I don't know why. Retribution isn't important to me personally. I just want to live my life without worrying about Shannon. And that'll be a lot easier if she's in a position she can't hurt anyone anymore, like, jail or one of those psych ward prisons. One can dream. And the more that comes out against her, the harder it will be for her to get away with all this. The harder it will be for her to do this even with fake accounts. Because people will know what to look for. People will know what to expect. But, I'm not the only person involved in this, and even though retribution isn't important to me, it is important to a lot of others in the community, and it could be key for some people to move on from what she's done. So here I go. To get more context for the allegations that matter most, please watch Emily Artful's whole video. Creepshow Art was always like this. I know it's a long video, but you know what else is long? Life. Life is long. Too long. You may as well just watch the video, because when you're done, your life will be 2 hours shorter. And if that doesn't cheer you up, what will? I'm nervous to record the rest of this video because we're headed into rough waters, so I'm going to start off a little bit slow, but I promise all this seemingly meaningless garble is 200% relevant to the allegations against Shannon. Part 2. Why I will not give Shannon the benefit of a doubt. Shannon is Amy. I was watching a nature documentary about birds once. Birds, as you may already know, can be kleptomaniacs. They steal things from people all the time, and this is especially true of crows. Not all, but some crows are very dishonest and will even steal from other crows. Some of these thieves are so manipulative they will alter their behavior accordingly when stealing from family. So, you would think that crows would be wary of other crows. Particularly those honest birds must be afraid of being taken advantage of by the thieves and would put more effort into guarding their food. But actually, it's the opposite. The crows that are most wary of other crows stealing from them are the crows that do the most stealing. This is because honest crows assume other crows are honest like them, whereas dishonest crows fear that every birdie is a thief, just like them. They see crowkind as evil because they themselves are evil, or at least they're evil to other birds. As evil as a bird could possibly be. So basically what I'm saying is, I'm a crow and I'm going to steal all of Shannon's followers. Any refugees of Shannon are welcome to hit that subscribe button. No, I kid, my videos are shit. In fact, unsubscribe because I'm working on a Melanie Martinez conspiracy theory right now, and I know once I post it, no one will ever respect me again. My point is, this observation about crows, that the dishonest crows assume that all the other crows are just as dishonest as they are, is true of humans as well. Sometimes humans will be sanctimonious hypocrites, and the worst people also see the worst in others. Humans who constantly accuse their girlfriends of cheating on them are generally the biggest cheaters. Humans will abuse their partners and then accuse their partner of abusing them. A human who is gaslighting you will accuse you of gaslighting them. If your partner is a sociopath, they'll probably accuse you of being a sociopath. If they've distributed pictures of underage girls, they'll accuse you of doing that, etc., etc. As you've probably figured out right now, this is about Creepshow Art, aka Shannon. Shannon used her channel to create drama and point fingers at people. She always sees the worst in everyone and doesn't think anyone can change because she herself has not changed. So she accuses people, real or imagined, of stalking, of manipulation, of misconduct involving minors, of doxing, etc., etc. And incidentally, these are all things that Shannon has been accused of. And this is not a coincidence. This Amy stuff stuff is Shannon telling on herself through her behavior? Actually, just a casual scroll down her channel, especially of her deleted videos, shows her true character. In other words, if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, swims like a duck, it's a duck. If you want a hard example, remember the video The Rewired Soul tried to manipulate me? Well, let's just say she tried to manipulate me in a very similar way. So of course, when The Rewired Soul came with, hey, wanna collab, she saw it for what it was. A guy who knew she hated him and wanted her in his corner so she wouldn't harm him or his career. She saw through that because she had done the same thing to me, and I will go into more detail when I get to the storytime part, but I publicly criticized her and soon after got several suspicious comments asking me to collab with her, and I don't have evidence for this, I'm sorry, but anyway. And then one day I DM'd her and I stopped getting those comments. So I wonder, was she trying to get my attention so she could manipulate me like everyone else? Anyway. And then, of course, she has, what was it, Ariel Versace she accused of distributing child porn. If you recall, she also distributed child pornography in her comments section, which I will talk about that later and how I do not believe she had good intentions with that. But basically, I don't want to talk about this point anymore because this is a long video already and you could basically submit her entire channel as evidence of this key point. She is a sanctimonious hypocrite. She is a dishonest crow accusing all the other crows of being dishonest. That's what's going on here. So anyway, despite having an excessive negative worldview, Shannon has a lot of false charm, which she uses to rub elbows with other creators. Networking. She can be oddly charismatic when she wants to be, and I suspect that's why there are still people defending her and on her side. The truth is, her behavior is very calculated at times, but her poor impulse control and explosive temper continuously get the better of her. This should be obvious to anyone who ever followed her on Twitter. In a way, her impulsivity helped her, because I did at times doubt that she was smart enough to manipulate me, I've since realized you don't really have to be smart to be manipulative. Some people are just so toxic they do it subconsciously. They don't have to plan it out. It's just second nature to them to gaslight, gatekeep, girl boss. Some of you still doubt me, and I get it. I've seen a lot of fallacy swimming around, and there's one in particular I would like to address. Many people have stated that Emily's evidence is not valid because it's circumstantial and just screenshots, and it's so much more than that. First of all, the just screenshots thing. No, there's IP addresses, cookies, and all sorts of other things that can be traced back to Shannon. There's a digital footprint that could have only come from Shannon. And, hypothetically, it could be faked, but since it happened over the duration of multiple years and always correlated with her location, etc., what device she was using, that digital footprint would be nigh impossible to fake. And two, there's a social phenomenon called the CSI effect. You may have heard of it, actually. As you know, police shows have been, extremely popular, but not very accurate. They're like a dramatized fantasy of what police work actually is. So, from Wikipedia, the CSI effect refers to the belief that jurors have come to demand more forensic evidence in criminal trials, thereby raising the effective standard of proof for prosecutors. I believe this applies likewise to the court of public opinion. In other words, it's harder to get people to believe you now because they're so used to the TV formula and expect abuse survivors to have some kind of a smoking gun. In the last hour, a piece of DNA evidence is introduced that proves who the killer is, and the day is saved thanks to Spencer Reed and his sidekicks. People have spent so much time watching criminals being convicted on TV that a lot of people feel more familiar with criminal behavior and legal procedures than they actually are. But the truth is, things don't work that way in real life. Criminals aren't always so textbook. Sometimes it's a greasy guy who has a recipe book for human flesh that will later come into play during the plot twist that reveals he disposes of the bodies by feeding them to people. Other times it's just an insecure drama addict with little to no remorse who stalks her husband's ex-girlfriend online and talks shit about people all day on her sloppy YouTube channel. Shannon is, for legal reasons allegedly, an internet stalker. She uses technology to stalk and harass and ruin people's lives, allegedly or whatever. So you're not going to find one of Shannon's hairs stuck in Emily's screen door. It's not that kind of case. This took place online. mostly. You're going to find messages sent from an IP address that belongs to the library Shannon was at. You're going to find cookies, LOL admin, stored in Shannon's PC. And her IP address reflects Shannon's location over a consistent time period, measuring in years. LOL admins are going to be able to tell what kind of devices Shannon logged in with and be able to match them with the devices used to the account in question over the course of years. This Amy figure would have had to have sneaked into Shannon's house, sneaked into wherever Shannon was at each and every moment she used this account, and she had to use her devices over the course of years without her ever noticing, not even once. Occam's razor, guys. The simplest explanation is possibly true. Either Amy is an espionage genius and she's going to use her talent not for the CIA but to stalk Shannon for 8 years over some MySpace top 8 middle school drama and then leave a bunch of posts talking about people in the hopes that one day she would get exposed so people would see Creepshow Art as a bad person. All over MySpace top 8 middle school drama. People believe this story. Like, are you fucking kidding me? The evidence that has surfaced is enough. It's more than enough. I'm sorry, I'm emoting, but what the fuck? I'm gonna pop a blood vessel. So anyway, circumstantial evidence is actually tremendously valuable, and you can convict someone without forensic evidence. As a matter of fact, forensic evidence wasn't always even an option, and yet the justice system existed long before forensic evidence ever became a thing. As a matter of fact, when it was first introduced in trials, people didn't trust it at all because they didn't understand it yet. And nowadays, the turns have tabled, and people feel like you have to have it to put your stalker behind bars. It's almost impossible to get the police to intervene with a stalker, no matter how much proof there is, and it's completely ridiculous if you ask me. So please don't come at this thinking, oh, if Emily is telling the truth, why is it the police involved? A metric fuck ton of cops are completely useless. How's that for an explanation? Now, I'm not sure Emily has enough to put Shanthony behind bars. I don't know if I can really trust absolutely everyone who is talking about this and every tip that comes out, but I can vouch for Emily. Whether she has enough evidence to convict anyone, I'm not sure about that, but she does have enough to convince me. And I don't believe anything I hear anymore, so what does that tell you? Honestly, even if I didn't have my own issues with Shannon, I would believe Emily over her in a heartbeat. I know Emily's character. She's a good person. She may not feel like a good person based on her assessment of her old toxic behaviors, but honestly, that just makes me trust her more, because everyone has made mistakes. Everyone. But not everyone will hold themselves accountable for said mistakes and grow and learn from their mistakes. Shannon certainly did not. Remember her dumpster fire of an apology video where Shannon draws the false dichotomy that if you want her to stop slandering people in videos, you're telling her she needs to become homeless and suffer in poverty? That was manipulative as fuck. An apology should never involve guilt-tripping the people who are trying to hold you accountable or get you to better yourself. I simply cannot trust someone who acts like that. And one more question before we move on to part 3. If you are willing to believe Shannon's ridiculous Amy stories that made no sense without requiring a shred of proof, but when it comes to Emily, all of a sudden you need forensic evidence before you'll believe a cyberstalking allegation, why are you choosing to be stupid? Seriously. To believe Shannon, you have to make the actual physical decision to be stupid. But I guess I get it. Stupidity is contagious, and Shannon spreads a lot of stupidity on her channel. And then I guess there's the camp of people who don't believe Emily because they didn't do their research, and that's a different story. I can understand that, but, like, if you know the details and you believe Shannon, like, really? 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 God. Part 3. Analyzing and contextualizing Shannon's antisocial behaviors to help the people she's gaslit move on. In this section, I will be arguing that Shannon has sociopathic tendencies, and not that she has ASPD. First, a quick series of very necessary disclaimers. This section does not carry a lot of scientific validity. Again, this isn't a diagnosis. This is not like a medical thing. And this needs to be kept out of medical conversations, because I remember what happened during the whole Jake Paul thing. And I don't want this to happen again, While I originally started my education out with the intention of becoming a psychiatrist, I jumped ship because I couldn't pass Spanish, and most of my education, it comes from books, articles, and first-person accounts from sociopaths. While I have a psychology specialization as a part of my degree, I am not a psychiatrist. I don't have a doctorate, and this is not a diagnosis. I'm just an autistic kid with a half-related degree and a special interest. While I've noticed that, like, a lot of patterns of symptoms in other YouTubers, I won't name names, I've always been tight-lipped about what I think they have in interest of their well-being, but I honestly just don't give a singular shit about Shannon's well-being after what she's done, and since I'm not beholden to a Hippocratic oath like the psychiatrists are, I'm just gonna break my own rule. Fuck it. However, I promise I would not go in this direction if I didn't have a solid argument and good intentions, those intentions being, again, not to diagnose, I don't believe in that, but to compare Shannon's behavioral patterns with those who have ASPD, to shed some light on her character and her behavioral patterns, etc., etc. You know, this is for two reasons. One, to help others who have dealt with or who have been fans of Shannon find comfort through intellectualization, move on. I think I've mentioned this before. And two, if she does eventually come back, everyone can know what to expect and how to protect their energy. Because, in my opinion, nothing is scarier than not understanding, than wondering, why did my friend treat me this way? Why did one of my favorite YouTubers do this? How can I ever trust anyone again? What do I look for? What if this happens again? Who can I not trust? You know? It's also so people can, like, understand that Shannon is not who she presents herself to be all this time, or arguably she's always been exactly who she's presented herself to be, and people are just now realizing she wasn't actually telling jokes, she was just telling the truth in a joking way. Truthfully, I'd feel better if a currently licensed psychiatrist or therapist were covering this than me, because, you know, I'm like the back alley dentist equivalent of a psychiatrist, but I don't see it happening. Well, one psychologist I used to follow made a video on it, but accidentally misrepresented Emily's case because he's, how do I say this nicely, outside the age range where most people are tech savvy, and he kind of sat there nitpicking about Emily's use of the word allegedly, and I just walked away dissatisfied. So, I hate that I have to make this section, but I feel like I have to make this section, so I'm just going to try my best to explain what I personally think might be going on, and I ask that you don't overrate my qualifications, because I have none. Well, okay, I have a psychology specialization, but that's not like anything major. Also, please don't use any of this information to diagnose or stigmatize people with ASPD. It's actually treatable. Empathy can be learned, and you'll find more people with ASPD in Wall Street than anywhere else. The reason ASPD is so heavily associated with criminal activity is, in my opinion, likely because people with ASPD don't usually seek treatment unless they're forced to, such as by a judge or a parent who's lost all hope. So please keep these research biases in mind. I love psychology, but it is a hot fucking mess of a field sometimes. Psychology majors relate, I'm sure. So anyway, in short, my argument will be that Shannon is absolutely a sociopath, which I personally define as someone who engages in a pervasive pattern of antisocial behaviors. ASPD and sociopath aren't like proper one-to-one synonyms, as there's no regulation of the terms sociopath and psychopath. Meanwhile, ASPD has a strict set of diagnostic criteria one must meet. That's the basic difference. I mean, every professor I've had has given my peers a different answer when they ask what the distinction is between sociopaths, psychopaths, and ASPD, and it's probably because only one of those words is a medical term, and most professors would rather finesse that they have all the answers than just admit, I decay, bruh. That said, the corollary is that it also doesn't make sense to gatekeep the use of the word sociopath, especially since the word sociopath predates the field of psychology, let alone ASPD diagnosis, which didn't exist until I think the 80s? I'd have to look it up. But anyway, someone could be called a sociopath for having ASPD, yeah. But they could also be called a sociopath because they're like unrelatable in a way. Others just can't fathom their behavior. Like, their favorite Halloween candy is candy corn, or they enjoy the sound of nails on a chalkboard. So please don't listen to anyone who may try to paint this section as something that it isn't. I've been very upfront about my qualifications and lack thereof, and I don't know if this is a disclaimer or a rant, but you get the point by now. I'm trying to have to avoid making a follow-up video, is what I'm saying. Okay, anyway. There's a thing called the Diagnostic Statistical Manual that psychiatrists use to check off not a comprehensive list of the symptoms of a disorder, but specific criteria that will help differentiate one disorder from a similar one. Now, I know what you're thinking. Sad crow, man, if you're not diagnosing, why are you using the DSM? Well, because, my friends, this is differential criteria that can be used to show a core pattern of antisocial behavior that cannot be explained away by other patterns with overlapping traits, particularly narcissism, which seems, I think she does have a lot of narcissistic traits too, so that's why I'm using the DSM. If she has a lot of traits of ASPD, by the way, it does not mean she has ASPD, but it does mean that she has a pervasive pattern of antisocial behavior, and as a matter of fact, I would argue that a person having a lot of antisocial traits is a bad thing, whether the person talking is a seasoned psychiatrist or an autistic kid obsessed with patterns, so please just hear me out with a grain of salt, or however that idiom goes. But yeah, I'll be using the DSM-5 because it's the most up to date, even though I personally feel it has a bias toward men, but that's just me. I'm not an expert. In it, it describes ASPD as a pervasive pattern of disregarding and violating the rights of others, in addition to certain checks I cannot perform on Shannon because, again, I'm not a doctor and she's not my patient. She would hypothetically need to have 3 or more of the following traits, which I will share with you in layman's terms so everyone can understand. Number 1 is breaking the law. Now, this has to be in a way your peers wouldn't, so we're not talking like she smoked pot in Iowa or she pirated a movie. We're talking like she terrorized someone over the internet and got them fired from their job by telling their employer that they were a prostitute and she was their client, threatening to distribute pictures of someone, racy pictures from when they were 15, sending threatening messages, slandering other creators, especially the ones you're friends with. Those are all breaking the law in a way most people would not. So check. Number 2 is lying, hiding behind aliases, or conning others with the motive of pleasure or personal gain. Now, this one is kind of self-explanatory. She has more aliases than she has faces. I think one was called Brita Filter. She must have had at least 20 accounts, because I think she used a lot of them like one time only. I'm sure she has like a big list of email addresses and the passwords to them somewhere. Like, I don't understand how the fuck she keeps track of all those aliases, but anyway. I've been told she actually slipped up once, and you can see, I think it was on her TikTok, a video showing her logged into one of her sock puppet accounts on Twitter. Also, there's the whole LOL cow thing. She did that all anonymously, pretending to be someone who wasn't her, which was why the admin ratted her out, because that was against their terms of use. You can't, impersonate some random internet person and then use LOL cow for your own agenda. It's against their rules. Anyway, so yeah, the LOL cow thing fits with conning others for the motive of pleasure and personal gain, and also hiding behind aliases, and also lying. So that's like all 3 points. And lying is a big issue with her. It's very clear in all her videos. She's even had some videos where she states that she has a lying problem, such as the one where she says that she was stalked for 8+ years. And of course, she also has a big slander problem, which I would file that under lying. Now, I haven't seen all of her videos, I can't stomach them, but I also can't think of a single one where she doesn't lie. Also, I would put love bombing her fellow creators in this category, as she conned others with a specific motive. Point 2 also gets a very thorough checkmark from me. Now, number 3 is impulsive. So acting without thinking, in other words. Again, I think anyone who has followed Shannon on Twitter knows how impulsive she is, so I'm not even going to cover this section. Check, let's move on. 4, quick to anger, aggressive, often with physical fights or assaults. I don't know if she's fought anyone physically. She did claim to in her I was stalked for 8+ years story, the Amy thing. She says that she got into a physical fight over being taken out of somebody's top 8, if I recall correctly. You know, the top 8 on MySpace where you top list your 8 favorite friends. Yeah.
And it was actually dramatic if you would take someone off of your top 8. Like, I knew people who got into literal fist fights with other people about their top 8, and god damn it, I of course was one of them.
So if that didn't actually happen, then we can file that under lying. So either way, check. I do know, though, also, she's very aggressive and quick to anger. She has the angriest channel I've ever seen. Like, I can't think of another YouTuber that gets as angry as her over the most innocuous things that just have nothing to do with her. And I'm sorry, but that's not normal. Her channel is so excessively angry, it's to the point where many people just find her completely off-putting, and I'm one of those people, so check. 5, reckless behavior that could endanger themselves or others, such as becoming homeless by choice with your friends because you don't want to obey your parents. and just, do something with your life. Or such as marrying a rapist who you know is violently abusive and doing his bidding because you're chronically empty inside and need drama more than you need oxygen. And just a disclaimer, that reasoning is just what my intuition is telling me. I don't have any proof of that, but that's what I think is probably going on in her head. Anyway, and then, there's how she almost drove Hopeless Peaches to unalive for the sake of internet drama. I don't know for sure that counts under this criteria. And, things like that, that's where it would be useful to have an actual psychiatrist review this. But, psychiatrists have to abide by certain conduct in order to be respected. So I don't think a psychiatrist is going to look at this. So anyway, use your best judgment, I guess. This seems to be a pattern and not isolated incidents, so I'm going to give this section a check too. Number 6 is irresponsibility, particularly with money, work, things that you need to live. Such as, say, tanking your whole channel and livelihood because you can't stop lying and, starting completely unnecessary drama with other creators, not to mention stalking at least one of them. She was likely raking in plenty of cash before her channel was demonetized. I believe it was back during the time she was falsely accusing some famous drag queens of child pornography distribution. And if she had just been friendly with others and done her research, her primary and probably only source of income would not be in jeopardy right now. She completely ruined her future because of jealousy, and there is nothing responsible about that. So, check. Number 7 is a lack of remorse. Rationalizing how they hurt people, and this one's this one's like a steal, because only someone with a lack of remorse who can justify their heinous actions could do the things Shannon did. Emily goes in depth in her video about how she suspects Shannon rationalizes what she did to her. She was a former drug addict. She insulted Shannon's singing. She was dating her ex-husband, Then Kevin Coulter has a Twitter thread where they talk about Creepshow Art and how she hyperfixated on Emily a lot and was always focused on Emily, detailing all the reasons Emily sucked constantly, and I believe that was her rationalizing the things that she was doing to Emily. I do personally suspect that Shannon's motives are deep down just as simple as any other jealous girl whose husband's ex is 10 times hotter than her. Sorry, I'm not trying to be rude or creepy, just pointing it out for the people who didn't consider, personally, Shannon's apology video was enough proof for me that she has no remorse, as she immediately skipped to rationalizing her behavior and blew a bunch of smoke up everyone's asses. She started out rolling out the, oh, I was homeless, wah, wah, wah excuse before she even addressed what was going on. Come on. I'll talk about this more in a minute. Even I caught how fake her tone sounded when she was apologizing, and autistic people can almost never read tone without effort. I'm sorry, but she wasn't sorry at all. The day I see genuine remorse from Shannon is the day I'll finally say, yes, I'll come to church this Sunday. Keep in mind, there are different types of empathy, by the way. So people with ASPD, they may not feel much, if anything, but they can understand others' feelings. So they can put themselves in other people's shoes. They just don't unless they can get something out of it, usually. Or if they're being actively trained to be more empathetic. It's not really related. I just thought you might find it interesting. Anyway, I believe Emily 100%, so I'm giving this section a check mark. If you want to look up more about what I was just talking about, it's called cognitive empathy versus emotional empathy, and you can find all sorts of fascinating stuff about it online. Anyway, that was the last criteria. Out of the 7 differential criteria I went through, her score was 7 out of 7. I didn't really do any deep digging either. I think I spent more time trying to decide what to eat for breakfast this morning. It was eggs from Waffle House. Anyway, I'm sure if you use this guideline more thoroughly, you'll find tons of examples of antisocial behavior in her history. But again, this is for the 80th time, not a diagnosis. Please don't watch this video over and around saying she has ASPD. It's not that I don't think she could have it, it's just that I really don't care if she has it or not, and I don't want to be irresponsible here. Nothing I said just now proves she has ASPD. And again, this video isn't scientific. The DSM isn't a checklist. A lot of people think you can use it like a checklist, and you can't. If anything, that would just further stigmatize people with ASPD, damage the chances of them getting help and recovering, and, having the symptoms of something doesn't mean you have the full-blown disorder. For example, my manic cycles, if they're bad enough, I meet enough diagnostic criteria for borderline personality disorder, but I don't qualify for the diagnosis because it's better explained by my bipolar disorder, ADHD, CPTSD, and autism all being comorbid. I do, though, hardcore relate to people with BPD because I have the symptoms of it, some of them. And diagnosing Shannon with ASPD will not help my argument. You don't have to have ASPD to have a pervasive pattern of antisocial behaviors. This is just for comparative purposes, blah, 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 blah. I'm just trying to help everyone recognize the antisocial behavioral patterns I'm seeing, and it just so happens that we've seen 7 out of 7. That's over twice as many as would hypothetically would be needed for a diagnosis, assuming that these behaviors I've noted are all patterns and not just one-off things. I think they're patterns. But anyway, it doesn't mean my personal hunch that she could have ASPD is correct. Only a psychiatrist who is treating her would be able to make this call. I think you have to be diagnosed with conduct disorder first, unless they've changed that. And I have no way of being able to tell if Shannon has ever had a history of conduct disorder. Diagnosis is super complicated. I can't stress this enough. And I only feel comfortable calling her sociopath because that's not a medical term. Sorry, I keep repeating myself. It's just, I know some people won't get it, and it'll be the Jake Paul crap all over again. Like, don't get me wrong, I am on public record saying that I enjoyed that docuseries, and I can't take it back now. I just don't think the documentary really did ASPD any favors, and I do have some opinions, but not all people with ASPD are dangerous, in my opinion. I find a lot of people with ASPD are actually quite likable in spite of their flaws, and it is a treatable condition, like I keep saying. So many people keep saying it's not, but it is. And being Shannon, though, I don't think there's much of a fix for that. Sorry, was that too petty? I've been through some shit, and I'm tired of filtering myself all of the time. Now let's go over some of the patterns found in Shannon's behavior that reflects those of sociopaths, particularly female sociopaths. Please note that antisocial behaviors manifest differently in women because of some certain obnoxious biases, sexism. The majority of research has been done on men. Since men commit more violent crimes, they are more likely to be apprehended and diagnosed with ASPD, which is compounded with other existing biases and has affected our understanding of sociopathy in general. Yeah, I know. Breaking news. Women are different from men. Everyone gets it. Sociopaths, especially females, will mirror and love bomb you to get you to like them. Mirroring and love bombing are both psychology terms. Mirroring, as defined by Wikipedia, is the behavior in which one person unconsciously imitates the gesture, speech pattern, or attitude of another. As this is unconscious, most people don't know they're doing this, and it's just a sign that they like you, and not a red flag at all. Sociopaths, however, since they feel no emotional empathy, have learned to mirror others as kind of artificially as a means to build rapport with others and get what they want. Because it's much easier to manipulate people when they like and trust you. And see, I don't know. Actually, no. Do sociopaths have a hard time reading social cues like autistic people do, or am I just confusing that with something else I read? God, I don't remember. But basically, it's easier for them to manipulate people when they like and trust you, so that's why they mirror. Love bombing is a manipulation tactic where the person, usually a sociopath or narcissist, will bombard you with excessive love, praise, and affection. Now, this may sound nice. What could be wrong with love, praise, and affection? But no one can stay on a pedestal, and I promise the love bomber does not plan on keeping you on that pedestal. They're just manipulating you so that by the time you realize what they are, it's too late and they've gotten what they want. And if they've done a really good job at it, by that point, you'll be so invested in the person that you thought they were that you are unwilling to see them as anything other than the person they wanted you to think they were in the beginning. Anyone who's dated a narcissist or sociopath will probably attest to how painful the love bombing is. So the female sociopath will mirror and love bomb you. Meanwhile, while you are flattered and you feel like you've met a true kindred soul, they're trying to collect information about you and to assess if you would make a good living dolly for them to play with, to assess you as a target. Sociopaths want to know what's important to you so they can take it away or use it against you. Again, I'm not going to go into full detail until the story time, but it's what she did to me. She mirrored and love bombed me excessively, both publicly and privately, and as much as I wanted it to be real, it wasn't. I'm sure Shannon's friends will say the same. I'm very fortunate that I caught on to her act early on and decided to string her along instead of falling for her tricks and becoming one of them. Unfortunately, I did go on to give her some information she likely used against me, and I regret it, but it's too late now, so oh well. This next one isn't exclusive to female sociopaths exactly either, but it's like not a diagnostic criteria, so I haven't covered it yet. And that's superficial charm. They have a habit of exaggerating their emotions to be engaging while hiding any unflattering emotions or reactions under their mask. This superficial charm helps them mirror and love bomb effectively. You know how after criminals are arrested, sometimes journalists will go around interviewing people who knew them and they'll say, I can't believe it. So and so was so nice. They were such a good neighbor. Well, that's what's going on. Superficial charm, love bombing, mirroring. Think of it as a social campaign to mask the real them. So instead of seeing this pattern as a good thing, you need to train yourself to see these sorts of behaviors as red flags. Now, I want you to recall back in the diagnostic criteria where aggression was mentioned. Violent physical aggression is more common in male sociopaths than female sociopaths. And now, a female sociopath, she might be violent. Those are the ones whose trials get covered on CNN. But the majority of female sociopaths are a lot more manipulative and engage in a type of aggressive behavior called relational aggression. They're more likely to hurt their target by damaging them socially rather than physically, in other words. They're less likely to turn your skull into a cereal bowl or whatever, and more likely to get revenge or get their kicks or whatever by ruining your reputation, destroying your sense of belonging, your sense of self, sabotaging your happiness, etc., etc. Meanwhile, to the public, they'll project an image of being perfect, good people. Again, they do this through love bombing, mirroring, and superficial charm. Their targets are not usually random either, whereas male sociopaths will often act on strangers, who are usually women, to be honest. Female sociopaths are more likely to have an instrumental goal. They will pick someone who is a perceived threat or who has something they're jealous of. They'll spread rumors about them, stalk them, gossip about them, and go on slander campaigns. I don't think I have to explain how this relates to Shannon, but I'm basically the key to understanding the difference between male and female sociopaths is that males will seek dominance and physical control, whereas females will manipulate you, toy with your emotions, even use self-harm or threaten to commit suicide to exert control over you. They know that as a woman, people will perceive them as more vulnerable and submissive, and they will exploit that to the end of the earth. Take, for example, Shannon's Instagram story. It begins by saying she's handling it legally, whatever that means, probably to cover up the fact that she is unwilling to address the accusations, and my guess is that she will either never address it or she will lie, and then lie some more. She then goes into a spiel about how she's not okay and how she's questioning her moral character, talking about how she supported all her friends and they turned against her, blah, 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 and she's going to deal with this by herself. This is her trying to make people worry, which would give her an edge on manipulating others. She wants to be perceived as innocent, as falsely accused, as the victim of the situation. This is probably in hopes that she can recover her career someday, which I'm telling you right now, that's not going to happen. She's also cleverly avoided assassinating Emily's character, which could backfire on her very easily, because Emily is a much larger, much more beloved creator than she ever will be. Now, when she says, see you soon at the end, all I have to say in response to that is, don't count on it. She probably has a bag of condiment packets somewhere in her cabinet, and she will throw away her audience before she throws away that bag. I promise you, she does not care about her subscribers at all. They are just another tool for her, a tool she can use to earn money and sway public opinion. Female sociopaths are also more likely to pretend to care for their targets. Notice how Shannon buttered Emily up in the DMs and pretended to be concerned for her, while behind her back she was stalking her and ruining her life. This is her using her sex as an advantage again. People perceive women as more nurturing, and Shannon has figured out how to use this to her advantage. Note the sticky, sweet way she talks to your face, and contrast it with how angry she is on her channel. If you want to know who's the real Shannon, the one who gave those gushing shoutouts to her friends, or the one who slandered them anonymously, I have bad news for you. It's neither. Shannon has many, many masks, and none of them are the real her. If you've been personally hurt by her, at least take comfort in knowing you never really knew the real her anyway, so in a sense you didn't really lose anything. You just never had it to begin with. Shannon was more of a character than a person. Actually, that might hurt worse. I don't know. Another thing that I believe Emily touched on in her video, but didn't really go too deep into, was internalized misogyny. I mean, she pinned it on herself, but not enough on Shannon, I don't believe. I think Shannon has a lot of internalized misogyny, and I think this whole thing, like at its root, can be traced back to said internalized misogyny. Okay, I lied. I'm getting on my feminist soapbox. And as I'm sure everyone knows, it's bad enough when two empathetic women engage in competition with one another. Anyone who's ever went to high school has probably seen at least one fight break out over a mediocre boy and his 3-inch hot dog. But when one of these women is a sociopath, that's when it gets truly ugly. That's when the crazy yandere shit happens, the stalking, the life ruining. When Emily was featured on that song over Shannon, Shannon probably saw that as an act of war to win Andrew's heart back, or whatever his name was. And that's how he wanted it, I'm sure. Because no matter how obvious it is that Emily moved on, Shannon will never see that. Shannon and Anthony could break up forever, and she will still fixate on Emily. You see, female sociopaths and narcissists especially will thrive on male attention, assuming that the female sociopath or narcissist in question is into men. And I guarantee you that Andrew's approval is more important to Shannon than Emily's life ever could be. It's also important to keep in mind that none of this is Emily's fault. She was being manipulated, and I truly believe that if she had not come public with this information, Shannon would not have stopped until she found a way to take everything from Emily. Her man, her home, her child, her channel, everything. Now, this is where people say things like, well, why didn't Emily go to the police? But what they don't realize is the police rarely get involved in a case of stalking unless an act of physical violence has occurred. And getting a restraining order, it's like climbing up a mile-high mountain of glass, wearing Lego shoes with thumbtack cleats. And your ice axe is a stick of butter with flies all over it. And your helmet is an umbrella hat. Also, waiting at the bottom is a stranger's doctor appointment. And at the top is an unlocked restroom stall in a crowded shopping mall, and your pants are down. Whether you make it or not, it's a humiliating process, but at least there's a chance you could die. By exposing Shannon, Emily has, in my opinion, moved just the right chess piece to protect herself because of how female sociopaths manipulate others by removing Shannon's social circle. Emily has taken her sword and shield away. Shannon can no longer come at her in the way she's used to. She's been stripped of all her power, because this is why Shannon ditched all her friends. She can't use them as pawns to hurt Emily or anyone else anymore because she's been exposed now, and her friends are no longer useful to her if they no longer trust her or hang off her every word or whatever was going on. That, and they probably want answers from her that she cannot or does not want to give them, so cutting them all off was probably a lot more convenient for her than addressing any of that, and it was just a situation that she couldn't salvage. And that's why she cut off her friends, because they were never her friends, they were her tools, her human dolls. And, while I do from time to time worry that Shannon may resort to violence, Emily is in a better position now than she was before. She assured me of such over private email, and I won't publicly share what she told me, but I'm satisfied myself. And a lot of evidence has come to surface, and I'm confident that this may be one of the only stalking stories I've heard on social media to actually have a happy ending. At least that's what my deepest hope is. Part 5. Revisiting Shannon's dumpster fire apology video. But wait, there's more. This video is so long. Oh my god. And the next section is even longer than this one. Okay. Now, anyway, I don't want to even touch on the Tobi drama. I want to avoid this topic mostly because I know Tobi is a viewer of my channel, and I don't want to make her or any of my other viewers feel uncomfortable for the sake of sipping stale tea. And I don't know what creators may be watching me right now, but Tobi, if you're here, I honestly recommend skipping to the next channel. The next section. That goes to everyone involved in the Tobi drama, and I'm not gonna shit talk anyone. I truly believe Earth is a school, and everyone is on this school to learn and evolve into better people, and spiritually everyone, including Shannon, though she might have a little more to learn than some others. It's just that it might open up some old scars, so I'll give anyone who was involved in this a chance to exit and stuff and move on. Another reason I didn't want to talk about the Tobi drama was because, it was kind of messy, and I didn't really feel like I could follow it well enough to make any educated judgments. I could barely tell what was going on. It involved so many people with questionable biases, and, I remain neutral to this very day, and I've just decided to let go of any judgments I previously held for the creators involved, because it was all kind of dumb, you know. I hope we can all do better, though, in the future as a community. And, you know, use our DM feature instead of taking dumb shit publicly, please. But anyway. Tobi was previously a small creator who blew up after making the faults of Creepshow Art, if I remember correctly. I remember her remarking at the beginning of the video how others were afraid to make a video criticizing Shannon and didn't want to get involved in the drama, but she was going to do it anyway.
I'll be completely honest, I've been super stressed about this video, and the only reason that I'm doing it is because nobody else really will.
And I remember wincing horribly because I knew what was coming right then, and I knew she wasn't ready. Like I said, she was a small creator. She's still a relatively small creator, but she wasn't yet mature enough, in my opinion, to handle a large platform like what came to her. And, you know, she didn't have powerful friends in her corner like Creepshow Art did to back her up with the inevitable fallout that would come. And I just felt like she had no idea what she was getting herself into when she made that video. And I remember her saying she has BPD, a disorder that can make it hard to deal with this sort of situation because of emotional regulation issues. I find that people with BPD have a hard time maintaining a large platform like this in a graceful manner, and that's true of a lot of mental illnesses. And don't get me wrong, because I know somebody's really mad right now. I know Tobi made mistakes in her career, and I know a lot of people were unsatisfied when she addressed them. But the drama was so convoluted, I barely remember what it was about at this point, so I can't really talk about it. Anyway, she has some good points in her now deleted video, which is archived online, and I want to take another look at her video for this one. So Tobi made 4 basic points about Creepshow Art's poor behavior. One was equating Jaclyn Hill's dad's church with a cult, which is slander, and kind of being generally rude.
However, Shannon in the video kind of frames it more as if it's a cult when it's not a cult. Not saying that it's better or worse, it's not a cult, it's an evangelical church, which...
And 2 was accusing her friend Karuna of being an anti-vaxxer, which is slander because she was an anti-vaxxer, but not at that time.
There are a good amount of viewpoints that are expressed between Karuna Satori and Shannon. After this, the fight kind of rolled over to Twitter, where the two kind of started to beef it out.
So I reached out to Shannon and I apologized.
And you decided to make a 35 goddamn minute video. You started to frame her as an anti-vaxxer. I know you put anti-vax defender, but you know what that insinuates? That insinuates that somebody supports that. The way that you framed it in your video, the way that you framed it in your tweets, made her seem like she was an anti-vaxxer.
She's trying to create the narrative that I am in defense of anti-vaxxers.
Oh, also, you made her tweet your header? Oh my god. How fucking old are you?
And 3 was accusing 2 drag queens of distribution of child porn. I've mentioned that earlier, I think, which is hypocritical coming from her and also slander.
We need to talk about hashtag cancel Jake Yancey. It's a mess. Okay, I'm gonna be real. The whole entire drama situation, it's just a giant clusterfuck, and it was hard to follow a lot of it. But the entire video goes off about 2 drag queens who have a pretty big, significant following, retweeting some fake messages that some human being tweeted out about, or trying to expose another YouTube creator, Jake Yancey, that Shannon, previously we know, has a very clear bias towards. In her video, she goes on to frame these 2 people, queens, of spreading around child pornography falsely, and then Shannon ends up responding, saying, I literally said they spread sexts that he sent as a minor, because they did. As those tweets are still up, literally fact check me right now, all the tweets I included in my video are still up. And then he ended up tweeting the clip of her specifically saying child porn and nudes, not just sexts. She said child porn and nudes multiple times in her videos.
Telling you right now is what was posted was revenge porn. His sex, his nudes, revenge porn was posted by and then retweeted by Shea Coulee and Ariel Versace, 2 people with massive platforms. And these were posted in direct response to them calling out Jake.
And 4 was the distribution of child pornography. I'm not talking about the time she threatened to do it to Emily. I'm talking about the time she did it to, I think it was regarding a Twitter artist's work. And the fact that I have to specify which time she distributed child porn makes me want to douse myself in gasoline and go lie on the grill at Waffle House. I mean, how How often does the average YouTuber get accused of this stuff? I don't care who you are. This is obviously a pattern, as is the slander. But anyway.
Found a Twitter artist with some of their work of comics depicting very inappropriate and very overtly sexual scenarios, including people underage. In the video, Shannon not only shows the art, even if it's censored, doesn't matter, it still appeared in the video, but also goes on to link it in the description. Obviously, now saying this, I would just like to reiterate that she did not post it for malicious intent. She did it because she wanted people to go there and to report it, which I understand.
When this was all going on, I thought about backing up the points of Tobi's argument that I agreed with and then some, but before I could compose an intelligent response, Creepshow just fired back with a carefully schemed apology video where she pretended to take accountability but actually just finessed her way out of trouble using her false charm, guilted anyone who encouraged her to stop slandering people by equating their concerns with sentencing her to suffer in homelessness, and of course couldn't do all this without giving a shout out to @Tobi in the description. It wasn't clickable. The video is, color me surprised, still up on her channel. It has a big dent in dislikes now, as well as some hilarious comments, but back then it was mostly well received, as you can see by the top comments all defending her. In the first few seconds of the video, she is sure to prove that she has a reading level at least on par with a kindergartner's.
Hey guys, it's Shannon, and today I'm going to be responding to a video that was made about me by the creator named Tobi, that's Tobi.
She opens up the video by love bombing the shit out of Tobi, her signature move. She here pretends that she loves Tobi. She agrees with Tobi. Tobi is dope.
Their art is dope, their videos are dope, and you should definitely go check them out, for sure. They will be, I guess, today's creator of the day. Despite the fact that we are talking about a video that is made to criticize me, it's very clear to see that their content is dope as heckle stiltskin.
It's excessive, especially considering if what she was saying in her apology was actually true about how it was all a misunderstanding, then she wouldn't have really owed Tobi this attitude, you know? Like, I don't know how to word this. I'm having a brain fart and I'm going off script, but you know what I'm saying, right? Anyway, it was excessive. So we haven't even gotten to the apology yet, and she's already manipulating us. By shouting Tobi out, you see, she's not just love-bombing Tobi. She's not just trying to manipulate Tobi. She's also priming us to believe that she handles criticism with grace because she's saying something nice about someone who supposedly is unjustly criticizing her. Even though anyone who's ever followed her on Twitter knows that she takes criticism with all the grace of Elmer Fudd slipping on a banana peel. After she's done with all the love bombing, she gets to the point and apologizes finally. Just kidding. She unloads her excuses ahead of time. She was homeless several years ago. Don't forget that she was homeless. The poor thing was homeless.
As you guys all know, I was homeless, and I was living out of my car with my husband in Portland, Oregon. During the time I was homeless, I was working between 2 to 3 jobs, depending on what year it was, and I was stressed out of my mind. I started making YouTube videos as a way to unwind and de-stress, and something that I would do kind of as a hobby. I never expected it to become what it is now, and I never expected it to go anywhere. It was something I did for stress relief. The fact is that because of YouTube, I was able to make a life for myself. A life where I am no longer sleeping in public with my car. I'm no longer worried about getting kicked out of parking lots by cops and men following me to my car and jacking off on the window, which yes, did happen, and yes, still stresses me the fuck out. Fun fact, my doctor told me that a lot of formerly homeless people deal with PTSD afterwards, and my stress streams are a definite indicator of that. So that's really fun. Really love that for me.
And let's not mention that it was by choice because the only alternative was putting up with her parents having boundaries. And honestly, you'd think me being homeless now would make me empathize with her, but it actually just makes me hate her more. Because she had the option of living at home and obeying her parents, but instead chose to live in a van. That's not being thrust into homelessness against her choice. That's just stubbornness. That's living the hashtag van life before it was trendy. I have no vehicle and I'm so far from home, I'm not sure I can ever get back, so, as a fellow hobo, my empathy is where my fucks are, at sea level. Anyway, after she's basically recapped the last minute of Tobi's video for us, she decides to say that if you want her to stop slandering people, you want her to be a sad, miserable hobo and suffer forever.
There's this idea that when I made my videos beforehand, I was super happy and I was going through all of this and all this stuff. I was not in a good place, physically or mentally. And just because I used to do something that made you guys happy, it wasn't something that fueled me the same way it fueled you. And I hope you guys can understand that. If you like my older videos, thank you. I mean it. Thank you. it means the world to me that the art I made in that time frame means a lot to you, because it means a lot to me. However, I do not want to go back to the person I was when I made those videos, because I was having panic attacks every night in my car, hurting myself, and there's so much more that I can't go back to that person. And I just wanted to say that right now, because in this video, which isn't wrong, by the way, I'm not trying to do anything, like, in this video, there are a couple of times where Tobi says that they liked how I used to be, and they liked the older content that I made, and that I should go back to doing that. And the issue is that I don't like it. And I just want to say that now, that I'm not going to be going back to that, because I'm not that same person. And if that's what you guys want me to do, I am so sorry, but I can't do that.
Then comes the addressing of the situation, which is extremely disorganized and contains no receipts, which makes it hard to focus on and understand.
The second point is that I did misspeak at one portion of the video where I talked about the hashtag cancel Jake Yonsei situation. And unfortunately, due to that part where I did misspeak, I made it seem like the two queens had shared explicit photos when they had shared the sex. I was obviously very emotional in that video because of the things that were going on with Jake behind the scenes, as well as the fact that the actual person who had shared the images, who did share the photos, had also sent me images of them hurting themselves to trigger a relapse out of me.
That should have counted against her, but because she spent like 5 minutes brainwashing her audience into letting their guard down, it counted in her favor that that part of the section made no sense at all. Believe me, guys, this is not a real apology. She knows what to say to people to get the reaction she wants. That's not taking accountability or acknowledging faults. It's a public relations stunt to restore her reputation, thus being able to maintain her social power and income. Regarding her friendship with Karuna and the fallout, she didn't address the fact that she slandered Karuna by calling her an anti-vaxxer when in reality she was a former anti-vaxxer before having children and educating herself. Shannon just reduces it all to friendship drama, during which there's a marked change in tone as her mask slips and her true feelings of aggression peek through. No receipts are given, obviously, just ranting and anger.
I made a video called Our Vax Happen, in which I make fun of anti-vaxxers. At one point in the video, I said that all anti-vaxxers looked like Karens as a throwaway joke, and Karuna, who had followed me for about a week then, took offense to that. To do with you. And that apology really held no weight in my mind, because even after she apologized when she said that message, she was still publicly responding to the Rewired Soul, saying the same things, and had commented on my video, publicly stated I was terrible on multiple platforms, publicly talked to the man who said I was abused and made light of it, privately took back her statements while still talking to that same man publicly about how awful I was, and then went on to publicly talk about me again, this time going so far as to lie about what happened and say that I made fun of someone for something else other than being anti-vax. That was when I responded, because she had already made what was happening public. She had already brought up the apology she made privately. She had already said everything publicly. So I thought me responding was fine. In the video that Tobi made, this is framed as if I was posting screenshots and making fun of the situation from the jump, but I literally made it a point to not say anything because Karuna said she had a hard day, and I personally didn't know her, so it didn't fully matter to me. I didn't watch her content, it didn't matter to me. When I finally did talk about it, it was after days of Karuna talking about it, and it was after she responded to a subtweet asking me to call her out. I only talked about this after she misrepresented the situation and tried to make it seem like I was bullying.
A lot of this section is impossible to get through without an emotional reaction, like your friends are afraid of you. That's not a red flag, that's a flashing sign at the side of the highway at night.
Because I trusted them. So knowing they are now telling other content creators about our private conversations, and they're talking to other content creators about me in this way and are scared of me, that to me sucks. It really sucks knowing my friend is scared of me. I guess they're not my friend, but you understand.
People legit heard her say this and no one batted an eye. That she brings up how she was homeless again. You're such a bad person for wishing she'd stop slandering people and just go back to making videos you could get through without having suicidal thoughts.
However, I want to make it very clear I am not going to go back to the content I was making beforehand, and I'm absolutely not going to go back to the person I was when I started this channel. I was in an extremely dark place, and even if you liked me better when I was going through that and making content surrounding that, that is something I simply cannot do. If only for my own mental health and my own needs. If you liked that content before, thank you for being here. I understand if you need to unsubscribe. I completely get it. But that's not who I am now. With that being said, I want to thank Tobi for making this video. I want to thank each and every one of you who did send it to me. And I will see you in my next video. Later.
All she wants is to be able to say whatever she wants with no consequences and make money off of accusing people of things that they didn't do. What's wrong with that? The only alternative is for her to live in her van. Forget that it was her choice because van life was cheaper and it allowed her and her then boyfriend, now husband, to save money, and that was the whole point. She wasn't suddenly kicked out like I was. She actually got to plan. It was so horrible and awful for her. I'm sorry for the constant self-insertion in this. It just pisses me off because there's a huge difference between choosing van life and being kicked out with nowhere to go. And it hits close to home for me. Kind of an ironic idiom for me to use. But anyway. And it just kind of pisses me off even more that she calls it living in her car. It's a van. I know it's like a small, petty, nitpicky sort of distinction, but to me, I think that's like a huge difference. And because you have more space. And I'm sure she knew that, and that's why she said car instead of van to make people feel sorry for her so they wouldn't judge her. Because, like, van life. I heard she had 5 months to plan. I had 2 days. 2 days. Man. Sorry, I'm just salty. Let's move on. So anyway, there you go. Her apology video had no substance whatsoever. It's hard to swallow in retrospect, and it was carefully scripted, not to take accountability for her actions, but to get people to feel sorry for her. Sorry, I'm not sorry I have to vent about this. Shannon's alleged distribution of child pornography in the description was supposedly to get other people to report it. That was her excuse for doing it anyway, but seeing as how it only takes one person to report child pornography to the FBI and no one has to hear about it, I suspect her motive was actually virtue signaling to her audience that she's against child porn so she can be hailed as a woke queen. Because you see, if she had just quietly reported it to the FBI, they'd have been able to handle it effectively, problem solved. But then how would everyone else know she's taking a firm stance against child pornography? How could she use it as part of her video for drama? And if I may point out the hypocrisy, we all know, she's shared not only that, but allegedly, for legal reasons, threatened to distribute racy images of a 15-year-old Emily, if I recall correctly. Now, remember my anecdote about the thieving birds from earlier in the video? And you know what else? I think she knew that by sharing a link to child pornography in her comment section and asking others to report it, she knew damn well she was distributing child porn in her comments section. She knew damn well that pedophiles would have equal access to the links she shared, not just people who would report it. She just didn't care. And I was completely disgusted by how easily she skirted this with her apology video. She allegedly committed a fucking felony, punishable by 5 to 20 years in prison, and everyone just decided it wasn't a big deal because she's such an upstanding citizen that she must have had the best intentions, and everyone got over it in a matter of days. All she had to do was fake some empathy and armor up using the connections she made, distract someone with some other drama, and suddenly the scandal was effectively Olivia Poped. Like, one of the most heinous crimes you could commit was involved, and no one cared. And to me, that just shows how skilled she was at manipulating people. Allegedly distributing child pornography for virtue signaling clout should have ended her career. It probably would have ended most people's careers. But because she had a puppet show of friends she was manipulating to armor up with, and because she prioritized self-preservation above accountability and honesty, she got away with it. And honestly, I'm still kind of mad about it. And to put this into perspective, she doesn't put a link in her description when she's shouting someone out she supposedly loves, but she puts a link in her description to child pornography. My only comfort is that I now know I'm not the only person who can see how fucked this is. I know it sparked a lot of drama and some missteps were made, but I am actually glad Tobi stood up to Shannon and made the faults of Creepshow Art a while back, because I could have never done it back then, and it paved the way for others to finally question the previously untouchable sociopath. And Shannon's response proved exactly what kind of person she was, or at least it did for me and some others, and I'm confident that if you all rewatch her apology, you'll see what I saw. A sociopath who was excited to be cancelled so she could prove to everyone how she's so much more in touch than those other YouTubers. It was all a game to her. The reason I'm going back to this old apology is because people are still claiming that Shannon took accountability in her apology and that she just didn't, guys. And Shannon needs to be held accountable not just for current talking points, but for past dramas that have been swept under the rug. because we got distracted by other drama or because it just didn't seem like a big deal back then. Like in the previous context that people were discussing it in. And at the same time, it's time to let petty drama go and just come to terms with the fact that Creepshow Art dramatized things people otherwise might not have cared much about at all. And, she made people feel used, she made people feel vulnerable and even afraid in some cases. Don't get me wrong, I want to encourage everyone to be the best version of themselves they can be. And that does include Shannon. I want Shannon to be the best Shannon that a Shannon can possibly be. I just don't have high hopes that she has a lot of potential to grow in this particular lifetime. Maybe in the next one, though, I guess. Part 999 or whatever, I stopped counting. Gee, that sure was messy. My next video will cover my personal story with Creepshow Art. And if you thought this video was heavy and included too much name dropping, I assure you the next one will be even messier as well as more personal. Don't ask me when that video will be up, because for those reasons, it's going to be even harder for me to make, and actually recording this wasn't as hard as I thought it would be, but I don't know how I feel about the next one. All I can say is it'll be done when it's done, And if you have any issues with anything I said in this video, feel free to DM me about how there's no proof of anything I'm saying and how Creepshow Art isn't actually that bad. I promise I won't respond or even read it, but you can go ahead and DM me if that helps you sleep at night. Same if you want to talk about how you agree, actually, honestly, because I've kind of worn out from peopling all the time, and after this whole Creepshow Art thing, I just want to build a mud hut out in the middle of nowhere and die there. I should probably say something meaningful to close, but all I'm gonna say is, please rate, subscribe, and blessed be, motherfuckers. I'd say it feels good to be back, but I feel nothing. I'm ready to set this hell site on fire. I hate YouTube. Oh my god. Catch me on TikTok. See ya.